Welcome back to another episode of Classic Conversations. And today I have, man, I don't even know how to describe this, dude. There's so many positive adjectives that I can use to describe this man. He's a writer, director, all around just fun person, man. And he is the founder of New Animal Pictures, and he's got a podcast going, which we will get into. We will talk about it. But how you doing today, Colin? What's going on?
I am doing great, my friend. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. And I was telling you off mic, you've done an amazing job with your show. You put out so much content, which is incredibly impressive. But no, I'm good. I'm coming to you live from Vegas, actually. My girlfriend and I are here. She has a convention, and I'm doing some work. You can't really see.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go. You get a little bit of
Yeah.
we expected this to be nice and warm, and this whole week in Vegas, it's like in the 50s and 60s, and then the day we leave, it gets up to like 85.
Oh man, that's
Yeah, but things are good, man. Busy but good. It's good to be here.
yeah, man. Thank you so much for doing it, man. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So let's just get right into it, man. This pandemic has been really like crazy on all of us. I mean, I don't want to say that we're out of it just yet, but things are slowly starting to creep back to normal. So how has this whole time been for you?
It has been yeah, I mean, super difficult for everyone. Obviously, I'd like to think. Well, first of all, my Linda, my partner, and I were very, very lucky because we actually got our house a month before the pandemic hit. So we were able to get settled and kind of get everything together right before everything went down. So when lockdown happened, I don't know how crazy I would have gone if her and I had been apart. But luckily, we got into the house right before everything happened. So I don't mean to make light of it, but it definitely was it wasn't too hard on us. We took the precautions. We were able to take the precautions. I didn't do nearly as much writing as I should have, which a lot of my writer friends, I think, did the same thing. It was a very bizarre experience, but yeah, I mean, it looks like we're slowly easing out of it now. Like you said, it's not totally done, but I think we're in a much better place, thankfully, thanks to the vaccines and the boosters and everything. So we made it through okay. And honestly, a lot of what New Animal became, the inception of that was during the pandemic. It was actually pretty early on that I kind of made the decision to go down this road, and we started putting the pieces together, which took a very long time. But here we are, and now we finally launched in February, so I'm pretty excited.
Yeah. We'll get into that a little bit later.
Sure.
Yeah. So how like okay what if anything has this pandemic taught you? What have you learned, if anything?
Time management. Honestly, I think, like I said, I don't think I did as much work as I wanted to originally in the first couple of months. And I think, time honestly is the most valuable asset that all of us have. And I think a lot of us, myself included, we get into zones where we don't treat it that way. And so, yeah, I think just using time, appreciating time, and then again, a lot of the New Animal stuff, when I started working on it, I realized that I really did have a lot of time kind of being forced to be at home. So I was able to channel all of my focus into it. And also just being appreciative for what we have. I think it's a very human trait to focus on the things that we don't have. And in reality, a lot of us are very lucky to have the things that we have, whether it's relationships, people, friendships. So I think those are two big takeaways from the pandemic. And keep a well-stocked fridge. Learn that too. Pandemic.
So take us back a little bit. What was growing up like for you?
Growing up, that is a great question. I had a great childhood. I'm an only child, so I was spoiled out of my mind, I would say. Not in a melodramatic way. My parents divorced when I was 5, but it was not a really a negative thing for me. My parents took great efforts to make it very normal for me. And I always had access to both my parents growing up. So it wasn't, too jarring of a thing for me. So in reality, I got 2 Christmases, 2 birthdays. So I was pretty spoiled. I've also got a great stepfather, Donnie. So yeah, but as an only child, I think I had a lot more time to dive into my creativity. My father exposed me to a lot of films at a very young age. My dad is a bit of a cineast, so I was watching Humphrey Bogart movies, John Wayne movies, a lot of film noir, a lot of the classics. A lot of kind of my humor foundation comes from Albert Brooks, who's one of my idols. We watched all of his films, Marx Brothers, Fawlty Towers, which is one of my favorite shows of all time. So I got exposed to a lot of stuff because my dad and my mom too. My mom's a big reader. And so, yeah, as I went through schooling, I started writing at a pretty young age. Some would argue I still didn't get good at it, but I definitely put in the effort throughout the years. But yeah, I think being an only child kind of forced me to use my imagination a little bit, if that makes sense. I forget if you have siblings or not, but I know there's a lot of, Linda has 3 other siblings, so I know that it can be a distraction.
No, I do. I'm the youngest of 5 biological.
5. Okay. So how was that? How was having 5 siblings?
Oh, it's they're all older than me, so like they kind of it's kind of an overprotection thing, but
Sure.
it's cool. I mean, yeah, I I don't say it enough to them, but I do love them all and support them whatever they want to do. So it's cool.
I'm sure they know that.
So let's talk about matter of fact, no. If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Man, good questions, Isaiah. Good questions. Don't care what anyone thinks. Period. It's meaningless. It's important, I think, for people to cultivate or to appreciate rather the opinions of those they care about. But I think that people spend a lot of time worrying about the perception that others have of them, and it's to me it's genuinely meaningless. It means nothing, again, except for the opinions of those who you respect. But I think the one thing I would tell myself would be to don't care what other people think.
Nice. So when you're not writing and when you're not producing film or directing film, what is your, do you have any other hobbies? I should phrase it like that. Do you have any other hobbies?
Other hobbies? Not really. So cinema like truly is my life. Outside of Linda and like my close relationship, cinema is everything to me. It has been since I was like 5 years old. So watching films is a huge thing for me. I watch a film a day minimum. Writing. I'm a big tennis fan. I go to the US Open every year with my father. I try to go more than once a year if I can, which doesn't often happen. I big into eating, love food. I love going to a nice restaurant with friends is a huge thing. Again, that's one of the things that I'm most excited about being here in Vegas. We went to I know I told you before, but yeah, we're going to Tom Colicchio Steakhouse tomorrow. Last night I went to Partage. Tonight we're going to Gordon Ramsay's Pub and Grill. So love a good restaurant. Love going out with friends. I'd say those are probably my biggest hobbies. I wish I had something exotic like game hunting or whitewater rafting or something, but I'm not big into that.
So good.
I do love zoos, actually. I love going to a good zoo. I haven't done that for a couple of years now, but I do. I love animals and hanging out with my dogs. That's
good, man. What would you I know you kind of touched on it a little bit before, but what is your favorite film of all time?
Favorite film of all time. So that's a toughie because I usually narrow it down to like favorite filmmakers. But if I had to say an absolute favorite film, it would be Persona by Ingmar Bergman from 1966. That movie, The interesting thing about Bergman for me is he's of all there are endless directors that I appreciate to the hilt. Uh, Persona and Bergman, there's a certain thing that happens in my brain and in my heart and in my soul when I watch one of his films, and it's almost indescribable. But it's the way he constructs the film that speaks to me on a level that I can't even begin to express. So, and he was really the first filmmaker that changed, I think, the way my brain actually functioned, or at least insofar as cinema and the vocabulary of cinema. So if I had to pick one, I would say Persona.
Very nice.
It's a tough question,
I bet you. So
though.
okay, so this obviously this episode is gonna touch a lot on film, which I don't mind. So let's talk about the genesis of your film, Strawberry Flavored Plastic. Uh,
Sure, sure.
how did all of that come about, and what was like the process of making the film, and how did all that come about?
Sure, sure. So that film largely came out of my frustration with where my career was at the time. So um, forgive any repetition. I know I've said some of this before publicly, but
Oh,
essentially throughout like all my 20s, I did a lot of the steps that I thought would be fruitful for my career. So I wrote, I don't know how many feature length scripts, tried to get some of them off the ground, came close several times. We've got some interesting stories about that I won't get into now, but um, and and I was 29 years old, and I was just like, I need to make a feature film. I have to do it. I'm turning 30. The time to do it is now. And I remember I was in a car in a parking lot outside of my job at the time, and I had the idea for the film stewing, and I knew it was something we could do for a relatively low amount of money. So people that I'd worked with before, people that I knew that I wanted to work with, I basically called all of them before going into work on this day. That's my memory of it anyway. I said, listen, we're going to make this movie. This is the general pitch. I hadn't written it yet, but I had the general outline of what the film was going to be. So I said, and I think it was like, I'm going to say it was April. Okay. So I said, in January of next year, we're going to make this movie no matter what happens. And that was kind of the genesis for the film. So I kind of ostensibly put a gun to my own head by doing that, because I told everyone, I was like, block out your calendar. We're making this movie. I will put the money together and it will be made. So from that point on, it was almost like we were automatically in development. So I started writing the script. And then I was the producer on the film too. So I started putting all the pieces together. And I knew that if I gave myself 8 or 9 months of pre-production where we could really adequately plan everything from the outset, that we could do it. So that was pretty much the origin of the film. And then from there, it turned into what it became. I mean, I wrote the script in a month or two, started the casting process. Aiden, who plays Noel, the lead in the film, I had worked with him before. We had maintained a friendship. So I came to him and I said, I want you to play the lead in this. And he was really excited about it. So we started talking about the character, and then everything kind of just, I don't want to say naturally happened. It's a lot of work, but that was the inception of the idea. And then, in terms of the content of the film, I'm a huge horror movie fan, like an enormous horror nut. I know it also skews kind of towards thriller and character drama. So I think there were hints of my love of Bergman in there, on top of, I don't want to say my love of serial killers, but the love of the horror genre.
Right.
And yeah, and I wanted to make something a little bit different, and a little bit out of the box, but also keeping it within the confines of a budget that we could afford. But yeah, that was the inception of Strawberry Flavored Plastic.
Nice. So what's your writing process like? I know you said that you put the script together in like a month or two, which I can't even fathom. But what what's
You're too
your
kind.
yeah, what's your writing process like?
So uh, it's not always a month or two. It depends on the script and depends on the project. So I just finished a script, which will be my next film. Um, And I have a very specific writing process. So number one, outlining for me is by far the most important thing. So ideas for scripts come from a million different places, and it can be a seedling or it could be a lot more fully fleshed from the outset, right? So it might be a really interesting narrative engine plot. It could be characters that I really kind of start falling in love with before I really even know what the situation is going to be, what the plot of the movie is going to be. So I essentially, I start one file where I write down like all of my notes, and I just call it notes. Brilliant, I know. So it'll just be a huge document with every idea that I have. And then underneath that, I start outlining what the story could be, where it could go. This takes months and months. So it's not like I just sit down, I'm like, I'm going to write a script, month and a half later, it's done. I spend a lot of time outlining to the point that I have like a small novella of notes, which is essentially called a treatment, which is like the entire film front to back in just paragraph form. So I know that the first scene is going to be this, movie ends here, and then just details all the way through it. I have a specific, if it's a comedy, what I just wrote is a comedy. I'll have certain humor notes. I'll have certain humor beats. I touch on like the character arcs. So if character A starts here and then he or she is going to end here, there are certain beats that I want to hit throughout it. So I put in all that work before I even think about actually writing the script, meaning like the dialogue, the action. It's just one big book of all of this stuff. And then what I do is I translate that to index cards. So each index card is a scene, and I put it all over whatever wall of my office is bare. Right now, literally every wall, not obviously this is a hotel, but every wall in my office are just index cards of different films because I worked on a script last year. So one whole wall are just like index cards with pink and blue Post-its for edits. And then behind my desk now is a whole other one for the script that I just finished. And the benefit for that for me is a snapshot view. So if I don't want to sit down and read 37 pages of the movie, I could walk into my office, look at the wall, and go, okay, scene 1, scene 2, and scene 3, scene 50, scene 100, and kind of be able to, because I've written it. So when I'm looking at it, I know that one sentence, I'm like, okay, I know that scene, I know that scene, I know that scene. And then I don't work on the script until the outline is completely done. And then once the outline is finished, and I'm happy with it, then starts the writing process. When I write a script, I almost always do it by hand. The reason that I do that is I am a very fast typer. And when I type the content of the actual script, it's garbage because I type fast and I'm thinking fast and I'm not putting enough thought into it. When I'm handwriting the script, I really think about the line of dialogue, every single one, every word of that line of dialogue before I write it down, because I'm putting in the effort of physically writing it. It sounds small, but it makes a huge difference because if I sit down and I'm just trying to like write out a scene, I don't know, it's something in my brain. I just type very quickly and I'm like, well, that's not good. That's not what the character would say or whatever. So I write everything longhand and then I transpose it to final draft. And that's kind of my first edit. So when I finish the first draft of the script, it's essentially the second draft because I make changes as I type it into the program. And that's pretty much the long and the short of the writing process. And then once the first draft's done, technically the second draft, I do another pass of it myself, and then I get it to some of my collaborators, get their input on it, and we kind of go from there.
Oh no,
It's a very long-winded explanation.
No. This is all this is a learning process for me. I can't speak for everybody else who's gonna watch this, but for me, it's beautiful, man.
Thank you.
I'm enjoying learning from you as if I haven't learned enough already. But
I appreciate that, Isaiah, very much.
So do you ever when you're writing a script or putting it together, do you ever say, this character reminds me a lot of me, or do you ever think about something like that?
I only do in hindsight, you know. I mean, I think a lot of writers inevitably write a version of themselves um, in into what they're writing, but it's not necessarily a character. It might be a sense of humor. It might be our outlook. It's very interesting. That's a great question because yeah, you inevitably insert yourself because it's you writing it. So it's kind of your sensitivities, your proclivities, your sense of humor, the things that interest you inevitably find their way into it. I've never written a character and said, oh, this is like my doppelganger. This is my personal representation in the script. But I think there's definitely, I mean, I'd like to think that anyone who reads one of my scripts is like, oh, Colin wrote that just because it's, you know, it's my voice. And hopefully I think every writer hopes that, you know, that their specific style and specific voice are present.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the your podcast. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about the new animal podcast.
So one of the big things I wanted to do with the company, which is parlayed into the podcast, is I wanted to have a one-stop resource for filmmakers of all ages and people of all ages to through the company ask questions and get help, but through the podcast, hopefully get a lot of those questions answered without having to ask them. We have guests on of all different calibers. And by that, I mean just different people that work in different jobs in the industry, people that have different levels of experience and different outlooks on the industry itself. I think there are so many great film podcasts out there that I love and that have inspired me. But at the same time, for me, I think there are a lot of questions that just don't get answered. You know, for example, listening to like the DGA podcast, the Directors Guild podcast, or Film at Lincoln Center. There's a lot of great interviews with a lot of well-known filmmakers, and those are very eye-opening and very enlightening. But for filmmakers that are working at a smaller scale or are really paving their own way, there are a lot of just general questions that I don't think are even taught in a lot of film schools about the actual what's it like to make a career in film? How do you get into certain professions in film? I mean, there's a million jobs at a film set, right? So not everyone wants to be a director, not everyone wants to be a writer. A lot of people are interested in producing, assistant directing, stunts, sound, and within sound, there's sound recording, there's sound mixing, there's sound design, there's composition. And yeah, so I wanted to create a podcast with different guests every week that have different experiences and different viewpoints on the industry. So far as you know, Marta was on. I think that was I absolutely loved that episode. Matt Barilli, who's a sound designer and a composer, and then Dave Lawson, who's a great producer, just to get their perspectives on it. But that's generally the idea of the podcast. Eventually, we're going to get into we're probably going to do some deep dives into specific filmmakers and specific genres, just kind of fun conversations. But the main goal of it is to educate just insofar as what myself and my guests have been through. You know, I mean, I certainly, you know, I'm not 90 and haven't made 70 films, but from the projects that I have worked on and the things that I have done, you know, I'd like to think that I have a little bit of knowledge that I can impart just to help people either get a start or know things to avoid, you know.
That's amazing. And just for the record, I have worked with Colin on a film December, I think was is that
Yeah. Marta wrote and directed a film called December 1st, which is a
oh
short
there
film.
yeah,
Which was a lot of fun. We had a really good crew on that. And you were in that film.
yes, I was. And I have a I don't know if I ever told you that story of what happened to me on the day that we went to shoot. What do you
I don't know if you did.
no, so I'm pretty sure I told it on one of my vlogs, but if I didn't hear, let's tell it here again.
Get into it.
So I'm going to we're gonna go I'm there a little early because I hate being late for things, man. It's
Yeah,
like
me too.
yeah. So especially on a film set, because you know you don't want to walk in late and then maybe they already started shooting something and
Sure.
you know. So I'm there and I'm down the block down the block from where we're shooting at. We shot at like this little like bar. I think was it a bar?
It was a bar. I don't remember the name of it, but yeah, it was downtown.
So yeah, we shut it at this bar, and I'm like down the block from the bar, just waiting to get I'm gonna get food because I'm like, all right, I don't know how the day is gonna go, so I don't know if we're gonna get a chance to like or something to eat. So I'm like,
Yeah.
let me just make sure I get something in me. So um I'm coming back from the deli, and there's I don't know if you're obviously you spend a lot of time in the city, even though you're based upstate, but you know how the cellar doors to like restaurants and stuff are like open when they're going to when they're
Oh
gonna
yeah.
put the yeah. So I'm 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 like casually like rolling down the street going back to the bar to shoot, and like the cellar door to one of those stores is open, and then all of a sudden I just take a I didn't see it, so I just take a tumble like I just take a tumble like on the sidewalk and everything. But
No.
yeah, no, seriously. And then
Was
I'm
that
like,
that was before you
yeah,
came to set?
yeah,
Oh my God.
yeah. So I'm and the crazy thing is, I don't know how this happens, but it happens to me all the time. I'm in the chair still, so I'm like lying on my side in the chair, like just trying to see if anybody can help me get back up. And yeah, no, luckily this couple that was passing by helped me back up and everything like that. But
That's awful, man. I'm so glad you were okay.
no,
You
no, no.
definitely did not tell us that that day. I would have. We
So
should have got over there and roughed them up. No, I'm just kidding.
no, no, no. So yeah, no, I have this like gnarly scar on my elbow from that day, and
Oh man.
I remember Marta had seen me and asked me what happened and everything like that, and she's like uh, cleaning me up with a like mini first aid kit, and she's like, hey, now you gotta chick stick scars, and I'm like, oh. So yeah, that was my story from the set, man. It was
That's crazy, man. I'm so glad you're okay, obviously, and that very much sounds like Marta taking care of everyone.
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely.
Yeah,
It was a very, very like that was my second film, and it
yeah,
it was just such a great experience.
yeah. And Marta really did a great job on that film. It was a blast to do. She was very well prepared, and we had a really good crew and group of people. So that was a lot of fun. And I think I don't remember when that was. That was
Like
20
2016?
17,
No,
2018.
no, no, not 20. No, like 2015. I want to say 2015.
Wow. Yeah, it might have been. Yeah, it was a while ago. And you got that memory.
Yeah. Oh man, no, that was a pretty that was a pretty gnarly day, man. But
Yeah.
this podcast is not about me. This is about you.
Oh,
So
hey, it's about both of us.
let's okay, let's oh man. Let's see. Um what would you say is your favorite horror film? Favorite horror film or
We're getting into the meat of stuff here.
yeah, yeah. Gotta
Favorite horror film. I hope you got a good 7 hours.
Oh no, yeah. Hey, listen, it's all I got all the time in the world, brother.
All right, my friend. So the two films that truly messed me up as a child. Well, not a child. Let me preface this better. So Halloween and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre are two films that deeply impacted me in my relative youth. I don't remember how old I was. Maybe I was too old. No, I wasn't too old for them to mess me up that badly. Halloween, yeah. So Halloween, I saw 12, 13, something like that. And that film had me check outside wherever I went to sleep at least one time. And the reason for that, there's several reasons for that. Number one, the original Halloween, obviously Michael Myers is a meandering, slow presence. And that film obviously ripped off the idea of safety living in the suburbs, right? So many films took place in the woods or at a camp. or there were a lot of different approaches to previous films, but Halloween took place in what was supposed to be a cozy, quiet suburb. And the idea of Michael Myers just standing outside of a house, waiting, not running, not chasing, just waiting and observing, just absolutely terrified me. And then, of course, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it's gritty. I mean, you watch that movie and you feel dirty. You can smell the slaughterhouse. You can feel the dirt and the dust and the sweat. And it's really an incredible experience. So many favorites for me. I'm a big slasher fan of the 80s. I love the Silent Night, Deadly Night series. Love the Halloween series. All the big series I love. Love Friday the 13th. Horror is one of those genres where I can get something out of almost every horror movie. I no matter how bad it is, I never like to call anything bad, but give me Silent Night, Deadly Night 5 any day of the week. I will watch it and enjoy it. My favorite. Yeah, I mean, favorites. I take these so seriously, the favorites.
Hey, listen, man. We got it. This is your show, man.
Oh, thank you, man. Yeah, so many that I love, but those are two. I'll just leave it at those two are ones that really, really hit me. I'm also a big fan of found footage. That's come in and out of favor over the years. If it's done well, I think it's fantastic. Recently, a couple of shout outs. Host, which was big during the pandemic, which was the seance done via Zoom. I think is one of the most innovative and truly terrifying horror movies over the last couple of years. I was a big fan of that. This year, there's a lot of really exciting stuff, including the new Ty West movie X that I'm probably going to see tomorrow.
I was just going to recommend that to you if you hadn't seen it.
Oh, dude, yeah. A24 just dropped it in their screening room last night, but we were out. But it comes out on VOD tomorrow. And I'm a big Ty West fan. I love The Sacrifice, The Innkeepers, House of the Devil. So I'm excited to see him. Did you know they already filmed a prequel to it?
Oh no, I didn't.
It's called Pearl. Yeah, when they showed it at South by, was it South? Yeah, South by. Just a couple of weeks ago, Ty West revealed that they had already shot a prequel to it, and I think it's going to be a planned trilogy. So buckle up.
That is.
I know. I'm so excited.
Yeah, seriously. Have you seen another great film I've seen? Have you seen Everything Everywhere All at Once?
No. I've been hearing nothing nonstop stuff about it, but I haven't gotten out to see it yet.
Oh man, that is an amazing film.
It's really good. Yeah, I've heard it's gotten like unanimous praise. My buddy just went to see it a couple of days ago, but yeah, I'm excited to see that. A24 has interesting output, and I know it's by the Daniels. I know they did Swiss Army Man, which I haven't seen either, but I'm excited to check that out. Did you see it in theaters or you see it on VOD?
I went to theaters to see that. Normally I wait for them to drop on demand, but I seen it I went to theaters to see that.
Nice.
Yeah. So what is your favorite film that you've worked on?
That I've worked on. Well, they're all different. I mean, I haven't done too much work outside of writing and directing on sets. I've done some producing. There are a couple there. Honestly, it's all in the future for me. I mean, working on my first feature film, it's not because it was my film, but it just the family that we had and the group that we had and the experience that we had was something else. And it was an incredible experience. So definitely my first film probably left the biggest mark on me. And it's about just like, our friendship, you and I, you build friendships and relationships with people, and the family that we had on that set. I mean, so many of them will be back for the next film, whether they know it yet or not. They'll be getting a phone call.
They'll know it after they watch this.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, when you build that family, it's really, it's something else that you really can't describe, unless you've been through it. So that was definitely probably my favorite experience. So I've enjoyed producing mainly short films so far, but I'm going to be producing some films that aren't mine over the rest of this year in 2020, mainly 2023, that I'm really excited about. So that'll be fun.
Yeah. And there is something that I can't talk about yet, but that's coming in the works. But we'll get to that when it comes down. But
absolutely.
what do you call it? So what is one thing that people might be surprised to know about you?
7 feet tall. No, I'm kidding. I'm not. Um, oh man, that's a good question. Isaiah, you're one thing, be surprised. I could have thrown that I was a big tennis fan, but I already said that. Um, I played tennis in high school. I didn't go out for any sports really in high school. And then finally my senior year, I went out for tennis. That's probably a terrible answer, but I did, against all odds, play sports in high school, if only tennis. I was number 2 on the team. I don't think I performed very well, but I'm gonna leave that as my answer because I'm going. I'll think about it though as we continue. I'll probably come up with something.
That's fine. So what's one place that you haven't been to that you would love to go?
Oh man, the list is long. If I had to pick one place,
Or no, just give us the list. It doesn't matter.
well, I've done a lot of traveling in the United States. I've not traveled outside of the United States very much. So Europe, I would love to hit Paris. London. I want to hit all the main ones. But I think Linda and I have been talking very seriously about doing an Italy trip. So that's probably the place that I'm most excited about. It's not just the beauty of it, but the culture of it. Obviously, the cuisine. So Italy is definitely on top of the list. I would say that in Paris. I would really love to go to Paris,
Yeah.
especially after you watch enough French New Wave films by Godard and Truffaut. Let me tell you, you're going to want to go to Paris. So I'll say Paris and then Italy.
Nice. Okay, let's see. Let's see. We got enough. These okay. What are three things that you're grateful for?
3 things that I'm grateful for. Linda, number 1 by far. My family in general, our 2 dogs, Elvis and Bootsy, are like my children. And also my passion of cinema. And I say that because I think it's a very lucky thing to find out what your passion is and why you're on earth early on. And I think that is a huge blessing that not everyone gets to have. I was truly like at 5 on, I was going to be a filmmaker no matter what the cost. And that guided a lot of the decisions that I made, for better or for worse. But knowing that and having that investment in my passion and in my future at an early age definitely set the course. And again, I don't think a lot of people get that. So yeah, that's probably the 3rd thing that I'm insanely grateful for.
What's the best piece of advice you've been given?
Best piece of advice. I think it goes back to what I said about not caring what other people think. I think, and that's been said to me by a lot of people, and it's very true. I think we all get, especially in the era of social media, which is utter garbage. But I think that a lot of us, there's a differentiation between like the real us and the us that we present. There's kind of this facade. I try not to have one. We all do. But I think it's unhealthy. I think we get away from who we are and who we're supposed to be, and kind of being worried about what we're presenting to the outside world, instead of just being ourselves. And it dictates our behavior a lot of the time. We make decisions as people based on what we think other people will think of those decisions, or how we think other people will react to those decisions. And that's wrong. It's a waste of time, and it's a waste of mental health. It's a waste of energy. So I think the idea of just being yourself and damn the torpedoes, as it were, I think is the way to go on the straight and narrow.
Awesome. So what advice would you give somebody that's trying to get into get into the filmmaking industry?
Make movies. Make movies. Don't just do it. I think it's very intentionally painted as this. There are a lot of gatekeepers in terms of making films, right? You need to get in with a studio, you need to get an agent, you need to get a manager, you need to spend this amount of money. At this point in 2022, all horseshit. Can I curse on this podcast?
Yes, you can. Yes.
Okay, thank you. All bets are off the table. Put together the project and make the project that you want to make. Now, if you can't, another thing too is that there's lots of money out there in the world, tons of it. You can't be afraid to ask for the money that you need for the project. You can't be afraid to put yourself out there. And it's very difficult, but the money's there and you don't have to spend a lot of money. Okay. The democratization of technology is thus now that you can get a decent camera, you can get a good crew, you can get your friends together and you can make a project. So don't worry about all of the other stuff. Make a project that you can afford. Again, it doesn't have to be a lot of money, but to answer your question directly, what I would say is just do it. Don't talk about it. Don't dream about it. You can dream about it and talk about it. Those are good things, but just go do it. Put it together, because you're never going to, I wouldn't have known all of the intricacies of producing until I produced. I didn't have a guidebook. I just did it. And it's not a compliment to myself, but I leaned on a lot of people. I got a lot of good advice. I read a lot of books. But it's not until you're actively doing it and putting yourself out there that you learn all the things that you need to learn. So my advice to anyone who wants to get into the industry in any capacity is to really go after it and really actually tangibly do it, because you can. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
That's an amazing piece of advice. And one of the things that you said on your podcast that really stuck out to me was, before you said this, I really didn't think so, because like I said, I only worked on 2 films, and you said, no matter how many films you worked on, or how many sets you've been on, doesn't matter. If you've only worked on 2 films, you are an actor. You're not an aspiring actor.
Yeah.
So like that really stuck out to me. So I just wanted to
Oh, thank you. I'm glad. Yeah, again, that goes back to the idea of like there being gatekeepers. And by that, I mean people that you have to get through to get to where you want to go. When in reality, it's all made up, agents. I'm going to get in trouble probably for saying this, but agents and managers, they work for you. They take your money, and I don't need anyone taking my money. Like, leave my money alone, and then I will use my money on hopefully buttressing other people's projects and my own films and getting our investors paid first and foremost. But the idea that like when people use the word aspiring, you're insulting yourself. Like, I'm an aspiring, but if you've done it, you've done it, right? There's no other things that you need. If you're a writer and you've written something, then you're a writer. You're not aspiring to be a writer. So, and again, I think that goes into the way we think about ourselves. So if you're constantly saying, well, I'm an aspiring writer, then you're constantly telling other people and yourself that like, well, I'm not there yet. And I just think that's insulting to yourself. If you've done it, you've done it. So, but thank you very much, Isaiah. I'm glad that resonated with you. And I hope everyone keeps that in mind.
Yeah, because like I always used to say that, like, I'm an aspiring actor or whatever it is. And then when you said that, it's like, oh, I mean, I guess I consider myself an actor then, because I've done
Good.
acting stuff. So
Good, Isaiah. That makes me happy.
yeah, no, so it's good. I guess I'm a writer too, because I've written, it's
Yeah.
not good, but I've written my autobiography. So
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That makes you a writer. No
yeah.
aspiring needed.
Yeah, no, definitely. So last question before we wrap up. Do you have I always like to let my guests ask me, a question or two, something that you've always wanted to know, or just
Sure.
interested in learning from me. So do you have anything for me?
Sure. Well, since you brought up horror movies, I don't remember how much into horror movies you are. Clearly, you are. What is your favorite horror movie?
Oh man, my favorite horror movie. Jeez.
I'm putting you on the spot.
So yes, so many, so many. Uh, but I'd probably have to say, I'm gonna get a lot of shit for this, but you know what? Whatever. What do you call it? Uh, Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare.
Oh, dude, I love that movie.
Yeah, I'm gonna
The
get a
movie's great.
yeah.
I love the whole Nightmare series, but that movie gets short shrift. I think a lot of the
Oh
time.
yeah, it does. And they're like, oh, it's not a horror movie. It's a yeah. Well, it is a horror movie because it's Freddy Krueger, and obviously he's a horror villain. So yeah, no, it shows up more of his comedic side in that film, I guess. You if he
Yeah,
there is one to him, but yeah. So that's me.
that's a good answer. Um, yeah, and also, I mean, I know people know it, but your extensive work ethic as it relates to wrestling and your love of wrestling, we've talked about that a lot. But I guess it's not so much a question, but just people need to know how much work you put into that, man. You should be so proud of yourself. And we've talked a lot about your history with wrestling, but I think it's
Oh, yeah, yeah,
fantastic.
no. So yeah, so for me, I don't know. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I told you this when we had our private conversations, but
Yeah.
putting it out there. Yeah, man. So my love of professional wrestling, it goes all the way back to as far as I can remember. I mean, uh my first memory of professional wrestling is sitting on the couch with my dad and older brother Carl, and watching WrestleMania 3, Randy Savage versus Ricky the Dragon Steamboat for the Intercontinental Championship.
Yeah.
That is my ultimate all-time favorite match, and I've said it ad nauseum. I'm pretty sure people are tired of hearing it by now. So if you
Never.
yeah, so if you ever want to know what my favorite match is or the moment that got me hooked, just look at all the 10,000 times I've said this previously, or just watch this podcast.
That's a good plug. That's the way to end it right there. Plugging our own podcast. Um, Dude, always a pleasure. I'm so sorry this took forever to do, but I'm so grateful
Oh
that you
no,
had
no,
me
no, no.
on.
It's fine. I gotta get more. I gotta get Marta on too at some point.
Yeah, yeah. I'll try to put that together. I'll reach out to her and we'll try to maybe all three of us will jump
Oh
on.
yeah, no, most
Or
definitely.
all two. Yeah, yeah.
No, yeah, that's pretty cool. So do you have anything that you want to plug before we get out of here?
Sure. So definitely follow New Animal Motion Pictures. You can do that on Twitter, on Instagram, and we are the New Animal Podcast. Also keep an eye out. We've had some really good press recently that we're very grateful for. Deadline broke our company coming out in February. I did an interview with Film Threat that you can find. You can find all this on our website. And then also, if you ever want to connect, you can connect with us through social media or through the website. Any questions that you have, anything that New Animal can help you with. Isaiah and I have been joking, the podcast is taking me so long, largely because I just finished a script for my next film. We're going to be raising capital for the movie September, October, most likely. And so right now we're in development on that. And I'm also in development on a couple of other projects. So it's taken us a lot of man hours getting all this together, but new episodes are going to be coming the next 2 weeks, which we're really excited about. So check us out and reach out anytime that you think New Animal can help you.
I will put a link for all the New Animal stuff in the
Oh,
description.
thank you.
So if you're watching, you will find all of the links at the end of this video. But man, thank you
Awesome.
so much, Colin. Man, I like just doing this show today. I've learned so much from you, man. As I always do every time we chat.
You're way too kind, man. And there's so much to learn from you. And I'm so grateful to you for everything, as well as your friendship and having me on the show. And we will do this again down the road when we have even more to plug.
Oh, most definitely, most definitely. I'll have you on again. But
Awesome, Isaiah.
as for right now, this has been another episode of Classic Conversations. I am Izzy. He is Colin, and we are out of time. I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.
Later.